Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel, Katherine. Today I'm going to talk about The Grief of Stones by Katherine Addison. This really lovely novel is a direct sequel to The Witness for the Dead, and this sort of sub-series exists in the same world and roughly the same time period as The Goblin Emperor. If you want to know more about this world and about the beginning of this series, I did do a standalone review of The Witness for the Dead, which is probably a better place to start if you don't know anything about these books. So with The Grief of Stones, because it is a direct sequel to The Witness for the Dead, I don't want to say too much about the actual events for fear of any sort of spoilers, so this is probably going to be a bit brief and a bit just off the top of my head here. So roughly speaking, the main character of this book is an elven man named Thara Kelleher. He is a witness for the dead, which means that he can touch a corpse and then speak to what remains of the dead person. So in The Grief of Stones, Kelleher is asked to look into the death of an older noblewoman. Her grieving husband is convinced for some reason that she was murdered, even though there's not really any obvious evidence for this. And when Kelleher starts looking into her death and asking around to find out if she had any enemies, he ends up going to a foundling school for girls where, while talking to somebody there, one of the girls slips him a note begging for help because something terrible is happening at the school. Unfortunately, Kelleher doesn't have any reason to investigate there. He can only ask questions when he's been asked to witness for somebody. Unfortunately, one of the young women from the school does end up dead. Kelleher is asked to witness for her, and that gives him a pretext to find out more about the circumstances at the foundling school. While doing all of this, Kelleher spends a lot of time talking to his new bestie, Pelthenor. I love this. I'm still very strongly shipping them. He dives into the world of photography, which has a very strong link with the obscene in this world. And he's grappling more and more with the grief, the weight of everything that he is carrying around. The thing that I liked better about this book over The Witness for the Dead is just I think the structure of the story is a bit simpler. It gives more room for character development, for understanding and seeing what's going on in Kelleher's life, and there are fewer mysteries and they do, I think, more strongly connect together. Whereas in the first book, The Witness for the Dead, it was like a collection of different stories, and I felt like some of them were pretty obviously inspired by famous mystery stories. This book, it's simpler, there's a bit less going on, it felt more original, and just like we're gonna get more character development. And I think overall that made this book stronger and more cohesive. I also think that bringing it around to more of the character arc with Kelleher, the emotional stuff going on with him, is more satisfying to the reader at this point, now that we've established what Kelleher does and the kind of mysteries that he investigates and the whole complications of his life, like the very hostile workplace politics that he has to put up with. At this point, we want more of that than just investigation after investigation after investigation. Another thing I really liked about this is that Kelleher's social circle continues to expand. Here, an apprentice is basically thrust upon him. This older woman who discovered quite late in life that she is also a witness for the dead, and she's just sort of tossed into Kelleher's lap, and they try to make the best of it. I think that she is an excellent addition to the cast of characters, a really good person to come into Kelleher's life, and I'm really hoping that whenever the third book arrives, she will continue to be a main character in the investigations. There are some pretty major things that happen to Kelleher in this book, which will completely change what his job might be in the future, and I'm not going to talk too much about that for fear of spoilers, but I thought it was a really interesting and kind of gut-wrenching development, given what he thinks his identity is and what his worth is, essentially. But I think it is part of that progress toward breaking down Kelleher and all the baggage he's been carrying and seeing him finally figure it out. We've taken the major step of him actually acknowledging all the griefs that he carries in this novel, and I just want to see some conclusion to that. Like, what is he going to do to make his life better now? I want it so badly. A third book has not been announced, but the way that this ends strongly sets up another novel, and I'm so excited. I want it so badly. So those are my thoughts on The Grief of Stones in a nutshell. I really enjoyed this, and if you have read this series, if you have any thoughts about it, please leave them in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back to talk to you again very soon about more books, and until then, bye.